I'm Kat.
And I'm Hayley.
And this is Night Classy.
A tipsy night class teaching the oddities and curiosities you never learned in school.
What are we drinking for this learning journey, Hayley?
I'm coming in hot with water. I've got some liquid IV in there.
She woke up hungover, y'all.
Yeah, from 2 glasses of champagne. So
we almost killed 2 bottles. It was more than you thought.
Oh, 2 large glasses of champagne.
2 extremely large glasses of champagne.
Okay, what are you drinking?
I have a beer. It's called Gerst Amber Ale from the Yazoo Brewing Company. And I don't really care for it, but I think that's because COVID killed my taste buds. It probably is good. I just can't taste it.
It looks like a dad beer to me.
It totally looks like a dad beer.
Patriotic. It's red, off-white, and blue.
Yeah. Totally looks like a dad beer. It is from Nashville, and I bought them because Alec requested ambers, and this was the first decent-looking amber ale I saw at the grocery store.
You guys are very good at trying new beers and things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very adventurous.
Living life on the edge in the beer section at Kroger. They moved the local beers to the other end of the aisle. So that was my big excitement.
Dare they?
I know.
I wouldn't even look at the other end. I'd be like, they got rid of them?
They look like they're under some renovations. And
oh my God. I remember the first time I went to a Kroger in Kentucky, and I was trying to also buy alcohol because I was in college, and they don't sell alcohol in the grocery stores.
Not even beer?
No, you have to go to a liquor store to buy alcohol.
That's wild. Are you serious?
Yeah. So they have Kroger, and then right next to it, they have like Kroger liquor.
Yeah.
And you have to go in through like a separate door. They're not connected at all.
At least they have Kroger liquor.
Yeah.
Right on the premises. In Seattle, we were spoiled with liquor in the grocery store. And like at fucking Walgreens, they have a liquor section. And Tennessee just needs to catch up.
Yeah. We're at least 30 years behind for sure. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, we've just been chilling. Yesterday, we made a crazy charcuterie board, and today it's pouring rain, and I'm soaking fucking wet.
Yeah, you got splashed. You are a wop.
There's a literal flood happening right now, and right before we came in, a car just like drove through a puddle and drenched me.
Your
so
car
that's how
is
my day is going.
Floating away as we speak.
I know. I literally asked Hayley, I'm like, is it okay that I parked on a small hill? Like, I'm worried my car is going to get washed away.
Genuinely concerned. But also I understand that because right before I told you about that TikTok video I showed you or told you about where the girl was on the highway because Starbucks, her manager forced her to go to work, and she was getting swept away, just like swaying in the waves on the highway from this flash flood. I think it was in Texas.
That is so fucking scary.
Yeah, I'd be pissed. Her car was totaled. She said she owed like $30,000 on it. So it must have been a new car, and insurance did not cover that.
Why wouldn't they cover that?
I have no clue, but now I'm like checking my insurance like
yeah, that's really scary. Oh my God.
I know.
Not fair. Not okay. But yeah, that was top of mind when I was putting on my e-brake and remembering to turn my wheels up and away on that hill.
Yeah, so things have been fun. I think my stomach is still full of cheese from last night, and somehow we have more. We both brought so much cheese last night.
We have a lot of cheese.
For 2 people, literally you and I.
Yeah, but we'll remake the charcuterie board for our bachelorette viewing tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
I'm very looking forward
to.
The
unveiling of the new apartment.
Yes, it's looking good. And speaking of tomorrow, as you are hearing this, tomorrow is our Patreon cocktail hour.
Tomorrow. We better see you tomorrow.
Yes, and we have some new Patreons that I'm excited to welcome there, and it's going to be great. We're going to drink some painkillers, aka unblended pina coladas. And
I'm gonna need it. I'm gonna need it. I've been full summer mode. I know you went back last week, but I've just been big time chilling, and now I'm big time crying. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that light at the end of the tunnel.
But yeah, definitely join us for cocktail hour, and then make sure if you're a Patreon at, I forget what the tier is called, but $10 or above.
I believe it's night classologist, or no, I don't think it is. I don't know.
I really don't know, but
all of our crazy names on Patreon.
Find List Bitches. We had a lot of fun doing that, and also trivia. And I forgot to mention something on trivia that I feel like I need to tell you about.
Trivia? Okay.
Because we did the Mr. Hands episode, trivia. And while I was at home visiting my family, my aunt was telling me about how she listens to Night Classy, and like the subject of Mr. Hands came up. And she's like, did you know that my horse was sexually assaulted? And I was like, no, but tell me more. And this was before the time of Mr. Hands. Apparently there was another guy going around having sex with horses.
How did she know?
She got to the barn one day and her horse Gogi was like tied up in the pasture with like her head tied really tightly so she couldn't move, and there was a stool next to her, and it was like at the same time this guy was going around doing that stuff.
Oh my God, poor baby.
I know. Isn't that the saddest?
That's the awful thing of the week. There we go. That's the award. Awful thing of the week right there. Thanks for nothing.
It is awful. But also I was like, when she was telling me this story, I was like, oh my God, that's so awful. And she's like, it's okay. She was a horny little bitch. I was like, all right.
Fair. Also, at least put the stool back when you're done.
Right. Or untie the fucking horse.
Yeah,
like,
what's
wrong with you? A lot of things, obviously. But untie her.
For as cool as Seattle is, the amount of horse rapists and murderers that come out of it is shocking.
Oh, just murderers in general?
Just
I thought you meant horse murderers. No. I've never heard of that, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, thanks for that anecdote.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Moving on.
My bad. I just felt like everyone had to share the trauma I experienced during that story.
If that doesn't make you want to revisit these past lessons on trivia night with us, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, it was also the freaking Blue Adept episode, so that was traumatic for all of us.
Deep hits only, or deep tracks only.
Yeah, just for the real fans. We still are like in the talks of archiving those Blue Adept episodes and making them Patreon exclusive, because I don't want to scare any new listeners away with
it's almost punishing. That we shouldn't go on Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. It's just outside of the typical Night Classy lesson.
Yeah, and
I think you did a good job. It was an exciting adventure.
I would not say I did a good job, but thank you.
It's episode 13.
For everyone dying to listen.
If you want to avoid it, yeah. I breathalyzed because Hayley hadn't drank anything. So I blew a .018, and I guess I go first by default.
Yeah, because I haven't drank, so unless I'm just still like wound up from last night.
Yeah, just your residual alcohol poisoning. So this week actually is a very special week.
It is. Oh my God, we need to have weeks like this way more often.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Alec volunteered to pick both of our topics, so these are both producer picks.
Special producer pick.
Very special, and I'm excited to share this lesson with you.
I can't wait to hear what yours is. And I also want to know, Alec, the logic behind picking, like, did you pick ones that, like, how did you assign the ones for each of us? I don't know if you want to say it now or later, but
I'll say them at the end of each one.
Okay. So on July 3rd, 1979, two families consisting of 8 total people boarded their homemade hot air balloon in eastern Germany.
Oh, God.
Their goal was, of course, to escape to the free and prosperous Western Germany and leave the oppressive communist regime that they were living under.
Okay, fair.
Yeah,
fair.
Checks out on all levels. That night, the wind and weather conditions were favorable, so cloaked in the thick forest, the two families boarded the balloon at 1:30 a.m. and lifted off. The group felt optimistic as a gentle wind guided them west, until they passed through a cloud. The water vapor condensed on the balloon, adding extra weight, causing it to descend. The group made it safely to the ground, and when they deboarded, they were unsure whether they'd had made it to safety. Strelzyk, one of the two leaders of the group, searched the area and found a bread bag from a bakery in Wernigerode.
Nailed it.
Thank you. That is an East German town. So they're like, fuck.
Shit.
Yeah, shit, fuck, god damn it. They had landed only 590 feet short of the West German border.
Oh my God.
I know.
No. That's when I'm just like, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, like they may as well have been dead at that point. They're like, holy fuck. So this was an incredibly frightening realization because now the group had to walk. They were within the 500-meter border zone on the eastern side. And these border zones are armed with landmines. Like there are border patrols, there's floodlights, like really not a good thing. Detection and capture by the Stasi meant certain imprisonment, likely sent to a work camp, and also very likely death because the Stasi would shoot you on sight. The group, which included children as young as 2 years old, then spent 9 hours slowly and carefully moving through the border zone and back to safety.
I feel like when your parents or loved ones, when you're that young, you can sense when they're not fucking around.
Oh, definitely.
And when to act right. Even if you are just 2 years old, you know, you can read faces and expressions to get the vibe.
Yeah, it sounds like that was the case. In interviews, they say, like, we didn't even have time to feel fear. Like, you just... all of you, even the children, you just go into like robotic self-preservation mode. And that's what happened. And this is so crazy to me that it took them 9 hours to travel under 500 meters. Like that's not even a mile.
Yeah. The will to live with people, just humanity, is absolutely insane to me.
I know. And so after they got through the border zone, then they had to hike 3 miles through the restricted zone. So before you even get to the border zone, there's like 3 miles that you're not allowed into. Like they don't even want you getting close to it. And then they had to hike another 9 miles back to their car. So they walked like all night with all these children. And of course they couldn't take their balloon. So they had to leave that behind.
Yeah, and they couldn't like try again, at least not with that one.
No, they definitely couldn't try again.
And do you talk any about like how they made the balloon?
Yes,
okay.
We will definitely talk about that. And also like the balloon was heavy as fuck. Like it weighed over 1,000 pounds. There's just no way they could have taken it. And so of course the next day the authorities found the abandoned balloon.
They're like, somebody was trying to get in here.
Someone was trying to get away from us. That's rude.
Somebody snuck in East Germany.
Makes me feel bad. Oh yeah, someone was trying to get to East Germany. They probably would be thrilled. Meanwhile, Strelzyk destroyed everything in his home that could possibly link him to the balloon. He even had to sell his car because he was afraid that it could have been spotted in the area the night of their attempted escape.
Oh yeah, you do not want to fuck around with that.
Do not fuck around.
Like the only way you're not fucking around is if you make it across. And God, they were so close.
They were. Can you imagine?
Heartbreaking. Yeah. No, I can't.
The despair they must have felt. So a month later, on August 14th, 1979, the Stasi began publicly looking for help to find the, quote, perpetrator of a serious offense and listed in detail all the items they found at the crash site. So now they're publicly and actively trying to find them.
Oh my God, I would shit a brick.
Oh,
I see that on the news.
Nope. Yeah. And if you know anything about communist Germany, like, and the Soviets, like, no one is safe. Everyone's going to rat you out. You don't know who is working for the government and who's not. Like, they will find you.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get away with this if you stay. So with authorities on the hunt, Strelzyk and his accomplice Wetzel knew that their only chance of survival would be building another balloon and getting out as quickly as possible. The race
Redemption
was on.
balloon. Please let this work.
Round 2. Round 2. That's German for
Good
2.
job.
Thank you. So really quick before we move on, I want to do just a little tiny bit of background on East and West Germany just to give context for those who don't know. So after Germany lost World War II, it was divided into two zones, East and West, to be occupied by the Allied powers. The western side was occupied by the United States, Britain, and France, while East Germany was handed over to the Soviets. Can you imagine being German the day that was decided and being like, oh, fuck.
like what the fuck?
Yeah, they just got the shittiest deal possible.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, a lot of them deserved it, but also there were a lot of innocent people in like just a shit situation.
Yeah,
it'd
be like flip of a coin.
Yeah, flip of a coin. Is my life going to be okay or be a miserable pile
or
of
am I
shit?
going to have to build 1,000-pound balloon and try to escape this hellhole?
Yeah. So West Germany was quickly modernized and subsequently made independent by its occupiers. It flourished, while the Soviets felt that the East Germans needed to be punished rather than assisted, and quickly ran the country into the ground, sinking it deeper into poverty and enforcing strict and oppressive rules. So naturally, many people fled. They were just leaving left and right. East Germany lost 3.6 million people to immigration between 1945 and 1961. And that was about 20% of the total population.
That's so many people. It's great that many were able to get out, but
definitely.
Still.
But like the Soviets were pissed because of course like the ones getting out, most of those are the ones with more resources and the more educated ones. Like it was a brain drain and it was very problematic for their infrastructure and the well-being of the country, whatever well-being they could have mustered in the first place. So the Soviets were becoming increasingly concerned by the number of people leaving the German Democratic Republic, and in 1961 began sealing the border under the guise of keeping harmful Western culture out, when in reality they were caging their own citizens in.
Imagine that.
Yeah, weird.
Reframing brainwashing.
And this was, of course, the initial construction of what would be known as the Berlin Wall, which was a massive concrete wall dividing East Berlin from West Berlin, but then extended across the rest of the border between the two countries with, smaller barriers and barbed wire.
Hey everyone, this is Alec in post-production. We just wanted to clarify that the Berlin Wall surrounds Berlin and that we are talking about the border between East and West Germany, which was 850 miles and also had an extensive barrier, but was not an extension of the Berlin Wall per se. Just wanted to clarify that. Now, back to the show.
And these small barriers and barbed wire look pretty small and easy to clear, except for the fact that they were reinforced by booby traps, like automatically set off machine guns and landmines, as well as staffed by armed border patrols under instructions to stop border crossers by any means necessary.
Right. And I never knew that there were booby traps and things like that.
Yeah.
You've seen the videos of the wall and it being torn down, and you would assume, at least I did, that there were guards at the walls. But the booby traps?
Yeah,
that's
because
rude.
I mean, it is rude. It's unfair is what it is.
Like, if you can get over the wall, you should be able to get over the wall.
Right. But like the Berlin Wall was pretty much only Berlin. Like there was a lot more ground to cover.
Yeah.
So like some barbed wire is not stopping anyone. You got to bring in the landmines. Yeah, so not a fun time. About 150,000 people attempted to escape over the wall's 28 years of existence, with only an estimated 40,000 people succeeding.
Oh my God.
And probably a large number of those who did not succeed were killed. People were willing to take the risk, though, as the Socialist United Party of Germany aggressively limited personal freedoms of its people. It controlled virtually every aspect of people's personal lives and careers. It did not allow opposing political views or free elections. To exert control, the Ministry of State Security, also known as the Stasi, forced neighbors to spy on each other and held extensive files on its citizens.
Like, don't you have anything better to do?
Right. Why are you so obsessed with me?
If they would have had reality TV or something, everything would have been better.
I mean, the Stasi were basically like producing reality TV for themselves, I feel like, by spying on everyone. I know, sorry, that was a really fucked up thing to say. But yeah, like they were in everyone's business. If you did like stepped one toe out of the ordinary, it was documented and people were going to tell on you. It was just a self-preservation at that point.
Yeah, so you had to get real fucking smart and make hot air balloons to escape. That's like what having super strict parents does. It doesn't make you a good kid. It makes you smart.
Makes you smart and sneaky.
Have to be smarter and sneakier anyway. It doesn't just automatically make you have a bigger brain.
It happens over time with practice. So these were the conditions that Peter Strelzyk and Günther Wetzel were living under when the pair agreed to escape in March of 1978. The two had been friends for 4 years and worked at a plastics factory together. And Wetzel had been on the government shit list for a while. His folder was thick.
Sounds like everyone's on the government shit list.
They are, but especially Wetzel because his father had escaped to the West, and I think he had a lot of other family that had also escaped.
Yeah, he's towards the top.
Yeah, so he was considered kind of like a flight risk, and he also refused to join the Communist Party. And if you refuse to join the Communist Party, like, that's not good, and then you basically like are discriminated against by institutions.
It looks bad.
Yeah, it doesn't look great to the Soviets.
Yeah.
He loved physics and requested to study it after high school graduation, but because of the Soviets' marks against him, they denied his request and he was made to study bricklaying, forestry, and truck driving instead. Being denied the right to study physics was one of the major factors that inspired his desire to leave. Like, it sucks, like, being smart enough and then being told, no, like, because you won't be a communist, you can't do this.
Yeah, of course. You live a completely unfulfilled life and have to go to this career that you hate. And, you know, plenty of people experience that every day, and it's draining.
Yeah. And he said, quote, the private part of life in the GDR, my family and I enjoyed. It was more the public life. We couldn't express our opinions. So he actually had a pretty decent life by the standards of the GDR. Like, he had a single family home. He had a family, like, he was middle class. But he just didn't like feeling controlled. And, you know, I mean, you can't.
Oh, yeah.
You can't openly use your brain, you know?
You don't have to explain it to me. I get it.
And even though Wetzel couldn't make a career in the sciences, he practiced and studied in his spare time. He tinkered with machines. He built electric lighting systems for his home and repaired the building's plumbing.
What if he just made a hot air balloon as one of those projects and then he was like, I know what we could use this for.
I mean, that's not too far from what actually happened. But he did have this like scientific engineering type mind, and that really helped when it came to building the hot air balloon. And he actually thought that maybe there was a point where he instead wanted to make like a helicopter or an airplane. That obviously was too hard, but I feel like just the fact that he thought that maybe he could do it, he was a really smart guy.
Yeah, he's got a mind like that. That reminds me of a time that I was under the influence in college and I thought that I could make a kite out of popsicle sticks and paper. And so me and my friends tried making kites out of popsicle sticks and paper, and it was a super windy night. Like, that's what brought it on. Like, you were almost getting knocked over in the wind.
Oh my God.
And then we did it. We like tied all these popsicle sticks together and hot glued paper. It took like 2 hours. And then we go out there and it immediately, like, it goes, I throw it up and then it goes and like shatters in the street.
Yeah, obviously. That's really dumb.
In that state of mind, though, I thought it was for sure gonna work.
That's like when it reminds me of being a kid and you're like, yeah, I can dig a hole to China. Like, you just think it's gonna work.
All
and
I
then
have
it
to do
doesn't.
is try.
Yeah, I just have to try my best. In 1974, Wetzel met Peter Strelzyk through family visiting from the West. And you were allowed at the time to have family visit. Together, they became friends and worked as self-employed electricians. Then in 1978, Wetzel's sister-in-law visited from the West and brought with her an article about the International Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Ah, I want to go to that one day.
I know, doesn't it look cool?
Yeah, it really does.
Fiesta?
Mm-hmm. That's what it's called. It's basically just a bunch of hot air balloons over the desert.
Yeah, I've always heard like festival.
I was just thinking Germany. That's strange. They're using Fiesta.
I mean, it's Albuquerque.
Oh, I thought it was happening in Germany.
No,
Sorry.
it's happening in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Albuquerque, Germany.
Yeah. Viva la Germany. So when he saw those pictures, he knew he found his way out. He's like, this is real. This is me. And
It's a High School Musical song.
yep, it's exactly who I'm supposed to be. He said he thought this can't be that difficult and immediately told his friend Strelzyk about his idea. According to other accounts, he was inspired by a television program about ballooning, and this is kind of a common thing throughout this lesson. So, spoiler, Wetzel and Strelzyk did not remain friends, and they have two different conflicting accounts of what happened. So there's like a lot of things that like there's two different details of the story. But
do you think if you and I had to escape the United States, do you think we would end up being friends after it all?
I think depending on what we did, because I'm making a lot of inferences here, so don't take anything I say too seriously. But I think what happened is like one of them tried to claim like responsibility for like being the smart one and like coming up with the whole plan, and I think they both kind of tried to do that, and then they got mad at each other.
I feel like if we were in that situation, it would be an actual miracle. Like it would just be luck if we got out.
We would not be smart enough to escape East Germany. I can tell you right now.
We would both be bragging like we have no idea how this happened.
Yeah. It was an act of God. What can we say?
I am religious now.
Yeah. I just went to sleep in the Eastern Bloc and woke up in Bavaria. It's so weird.
Honestly, paranormal.
I was spirited away to Western Germany.
Fairies.
In any case, whatever it was that inspired the idea, the pair started researching hot air balloons. This is not easy to do when you're in Soviet Germany, so they did the best they could with what little they had. Luckily, though, the mechanics of a hot air balloon are actually pretty simple. You have a balloon attached to a basket and then some kind of motor used to like, or not motor, but like a flame under it that you have like propane gas to keep lit, and then that makes hot air. The hot air rises, pushes up the balloon, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem too hard. The plan was to escape them, their wives, and 4 children that they had between them, and the age range for the kids was 2 to 15.
Right. All of them together. I thought the way you said that made me think that the 2 men were trying to escape their wives' children.
No, luckily they didn't abandon their wives and children. That would be so fucked.
Balloon's called the man cave.
Yeah. They have like a dartboard and they're drinking Coors Light.
There's whiskey stones.
Yeah. Yeah, those whiskey stones that you always like get sold like go those ads for around Father's Day, you know, the ones that like are reusable.
Yes, Tommy
like
has some of
The
those.
sandbags
Tommy
holding the
has
balloon
whiskey
down.
stones.
Yeah, I have no idea why.
Her boyfriend doesn't even drink, you guys.
Yeah.
And he has
It's because everyone gifts them to you.
It must be.
No one uses them. No one's ever used them.
yeah, just use ice.
It would be normal.
Please.
Like you want it to be diluted a little bit.
Yeah, no one wants just straight whiskey. I mean, I guess some people do, but gross.
Yeah, if you want it straight, you don't want rocks in it.
Yeah. Or just put your whiskey in the fridge. Why don't people do that?
I have no
If you
clue.
want it cold, just put it in the fridge.
Let me be honest with you. I know nothing about whiskey.
Me either. I fucking hate whiskey. It's disgusting.
It's for dads.
It is. Much like this beer that I'm
Yep.
drinking. So while it's pretty simple to make a hot air balloon, making one capable of lifting 8 people is a lot harder. And on the Wikipedia page, it says 8 people around like 1,600 pounds. And that doesn't make sense to me. Like it should be way less than that considering a lot of them are children, because 1,600 pounds would mean there's like an average weight of 200 pounds each.
The balloon weighs like a ton, right?
Well, the balloon weighs more than 1,600 pounds.
Yeah,
so I think this is just counting the people.
Have to be able to lift that many. Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah. So I don't know what those calculations are.
Germans
but okay.
were built different back then.
Yeah, it's that all that cheese,
All that
meat, and beer. Not that 200 pounds is a lot, but it just like a lot of them are kids.
That's what I'm saying is I'm thinking about a 2-year-old weighing 200 pounds.
Needs to go to the doctor. I mean, maybe that's why they're going to West Germany.
The moms were wrecked.
So the other challenge would be getting the materials. They calculated that they would need about 800 square meters of fabric. But they lived in a small town called Pusnek of only about 20,000 people. And buying all that fabric would be really fucking suspicious since they're not seamstresses or anything.
She's like, hey, I gotta make clothes for my 200-pound child.
My 200-pound baby.
All of this fabric is gonna make 2 new school clothes.
So first they tried buying fabric in a few neighboring towns without much success because there's not a lot of places that can sell you 800 square meters of fabric all at once. They ended up having to travel 50 kilometers to a town called Gera, where they managed to buy 850 meters of cotton cloth from a department store. They told the clerk that they needed the material to use as tent lining for their camping club. Which is really precious.
Oh my God. The next time I have like a bunch of clothes packages coming and Tommy's like, what are all these for? That's what I'm going to tell them.
Yeah.
I'm DIYing a tent. Kat and
Shein haul for my DIY tent.
It's just cheaper to make it yourself.
Honestly, Shein clothes are probably like cheaper than buying the equivalent in fabric from a fabric store.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
It's a good excuse.
But the clothes will not last.
No.
And surely you cannot use them for a hot air balloon.
No. And also when I read this, I'm like, cotton cloth? Like,
yeah, it seems like you would want something that would be coated, like a tarp type thing, that anti-inflammatory.
Definitely. It sounds like they were just buying regular fabric, which is going to be a problem later. Spoiler alert. It took Wetzel 2 weeks to sew the cloth together in a giant balloon-shaped bag. He did this using an outdated 40-year-old manual sewing machine, and this was in like 1979, so this thing was like really primitive.
Wow.
Other accounts say it was their wives that sewed together the balloon. But Wetzel definitely made like the other one, so I think he was doing most of it, whether or not other people helped him. And meanwhile, Strelzyk made the gondola and the burner. And the gondola was made from an iron frame. It had a sheet metal floor, and then he wrapped clothesline around the perimeter.
Wow.
So basically a metal basket with nothing to hold you in but string. Yeah. And they were like 2,000 feet in the air.
Would you go on a hot air balloon?
No.
I think I would.
I definitely wouldn't. It sounds miserable. I've seen on I feel like they've gone on hot air balloons on The Bachelor before, and it makes people incredibly motion sick.
Ooh,
they're
throwing up.
Yeah. And I feel like it would be hot, right? Like you have a giant fire burning right over your head.
It's not right over your head.
Yeah. I don't know.
It'd be fine. I think if that were an issue, people wouldn't do it.
That's true. I'm just suspicious of them. I think my thing is I would get really motion sick.
Yeah. I definitely get motion sick myself.
Yeah.
I can't go on boats, so.
Me either.
That's fun.
So fun. The burner was made using liquid propane, hoses, a water pipe, a nozzle, and a piece of stovepipe. So he fashioned this thing where it would basically shoot fire fueled by the propane up a tube and toward the balloon. In April of 1978, the two were ready to test their creation. They found a secluded forest clearing, but failed to inflate their balloon. At first, they hypothesized that that's because they laid their balloon on the ground and then just tried to blast the hot air into it. So they decided it would be better if they hung up the balloon so it could inflate vertically. They searched for a place that this would be possible for a few weeks and ended up finding a rock quarry where they could suspend the balloon. Quarry, sorry. Is it quarry?
Yes.
Okay. Before inflating it. This attempt was also unsuccessful. Their next idea was to first inflate the balloon by blowing in regular air and then start the stove for the hot air. And I believe that's how you're supposed to do it.
Okay.
Like first you fill it with air and then you heat it up. I think they were just trying, like lighting the fire, hoping that would just fill it up with air.
It makes sense to put in the normal air so at least it's inflated and then the hot air can start to take you up when you're ready.
Exactly. And so they created a blower using a motorcycle engine to spin fan blades and then heated that air with a flamethrower.
This is insane.
Yeah, they're just using whatever they can find. And so they did that. They were blowing air into this balloon, but it wouldn't inflate because, like we said, cotton material is thin. It does not hold air.
It's going right through.
Yeah, it was leaking right out. So it was a complete failure.
I would just start crying.
Yeah.
It would be total tears of frustration.
100%. And all this time they're having to buy all this fabric, and that is not cheap, especially not somewhere where resources are really scarce to begin with.
And they're under all of this pressure. No, I don't know what I would do, but they're really fighting for it.
Yeah.
Which is so honorable, but
Definitely. I'm just too lazy. I mean, maybe if I were as miserable as I'm sure they were, but yikes, it sounds hard.
yeah.
And the flame it shot out was 39 feet long, to give you a sense of how big this thing was.
Yeah, that was
Just the
definitely
flame.
a man-made, a rigged.
German engineering.
Yeah, at its finest. So Strelzyk disposed of all evidence by burning the cotton balloon in his furnace. Can you imagine spending weeks like perfecting this thing and then you just have to burn it? You can't even keep it.
I mean, hey, they had the perfect thing to burn it with.
That's true. They had a flamethrower. Now they knew they needed better fabric, so they purchased samples of a few different materials: umbrella fabric, taffeta, and nylon.
To me, why not just reinforce the cotton balloon they already made and shaped with that fabric? You know?
But they're going to have to cover it. They'd have to cover it in that fabric anyway. They may as well make a new one. And you don't want to weigh it down, I guess. Like, you don't want extra fabric.
I guess I was thinking it might be hard to kind of like shape it, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
I was thinking maybe like waterproof it with something. Like, but I don't know that they had access to something that could waterproof it. But they worked at a plastics factory, so I don't know.
Dumbasses.
Stupid. They got samples of all these fabrics and tested each material's ability to hold air by blowing into it with a vacuum. They also tested its fire resistance. The umbrella material worked the best, but it was really expensive. They couldn't afford it. So they ended up using synthetic taffeta, and taffeta is what was used to make ball gowns. So I think it's that glossy, like synthetic fabric that you see on gowns. Again, to get the material, they drove to a faraway city. This time it was Leipzig. And the story they told the clerk there was that they were part of a sailing club and needed fabric to make sails.
Hey, that's believable, right? They were still allowed to sail, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know where you would sail. I guess Germany has a sea. I don't know if that touched
The
Eastern
Baltic
Germany.
Sea. I don't think so, but maybe. You remember the lesson I did on the Russian Baltic fleet? Because like that sea is almost always frozen, or at least very cold, so the ships don't get out much. So
I don't think they're talking about that sea.
oh,
Germany has a coast, doesn't it?
the Baltic
on the
Sea.
west, the north. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there was
they
a
had
lake or
lakes.
something.
Yeah, they gotta have lakes in Germany.
They have to have a lake. Also, the camping excuse worked. I don't know why they made up a new story. I think they were just having fun at this point. They're like, what would we like to do? Camping and sailing. So still, they feared that due to the amount they were buying, the sale would be reported to the Stasi, because pretty much anything unusual at that time, you reported it because you were scared, like if you didn't report it and it was something, you could be implicated too. Luckily, though, that didn't happen, and they were able to pick up their 800 meters of fabric the next day without incident. They also purchased an electric motor to attach to the sewing machine to speed up the process. So this time, the balloon could be finished in 1 week. However, when they tested it, they found that their motor wasn't powerful enough to lift the basket to the necessary height. So basically, they couldn't produce enough heat to get this thing off the ground.
Damn.
Strelzyk, though, was able to solve the problem by mounting the propane tanks upside down, and this caused additional pressure and a larger flame. So he fixed it.
Gosh, it's just like one thing after
I know.
another, all of these hurdles.
I know, and just trial by error. Like they didn't have access to instructions. Like they were just figuring it out themselves. They're not professional engineers. Like it's pretty crazy they pulled this off.
So many meltdowns would have been had by me.
100%. I don't blame them for not being friends afterward. They were probably so fucking sick of each other.
Yeah.
So now they were ready. But as we learned in the beginning of this lesson, the first attempt was unsuccessful. And now the two had to build a completely new balloon.
That was all for the first one?
That was the first one.
Oh my God. I thought you're like telling the tale of how they kept trying even after their first
that
attempt
was
went
leading
down.
up to the failure.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What?
But they persevered. So they failed, remember? And then the Stasi were like on their backs and they're like, we have to do this as soon as possible now. So now this is when they're really like going for it. They made a new balloon. It was double the size of the other balloon. And they bought material from different sources all over the country to avoid suspicion.
Did they drive all over the country or what?
Yeah, they drove.
Oh my God.
And just another note on size, the second balloon was 82 feet tall, which means it was the size of a 7-story building.
Holy shit. How fast did they make it?
I'll tell you how fast.
Okay.
So they were basically buying whatever material they could find. They were buying taffeta, umbrella fabric, tent nylon, bed linen, whatever they could get their hands on without raising suspicion. And then, of course, since they're buying it from different places, it's all different colors and patterns. So we can look at pictures of the balloon,
yes.
And it looks really, really cool.
A hot balloon of many colors.
Yes, a rainbow in the sky. So Wetzel made sewing basically his full-time job. He was calling in sick from work, and Strelzyk's older son was also helping him sew to get this done as fast as possible. After 6 weeks, they were ready with their final balloon. On September 15th, a violent thunderstorm created the necessary wind strong enough for their voyage.
Not only are they doing this in a hot air balloon, but they're going to go up during a thunderstorm.
It's for the drama. The group of 8 people arrived at the launch site at 1:30 a.m. The only thing they were able to take with them were their identification papers. It took 10 minutes to inflate the balloon and another 3 minutes to heat the air. Then it was time to cut the tethers that were holding the balloon to the ground. These need to be cut at the exact same time. And they're on opposite sides. So if you don't cut them off at the same time, one side goes up before the other side, and that's no good. So Wetzel and Strelzyk stood on opposite sides of the basket to cut the anchor ropes, but they messed up and didn't cut them exactly at the same time. This caused the balloon to tip, and you have that giant flame shooting up through the middle of the balloon. So when it tips, the flame caught the balloon on fire.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No.
Are you kidding me? They were so close.
Well, luckily they did think to bring a fire extinguisher, and they extinguished it, and it was okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're freaking giving me a heart attack.
I'm sorry. So they managed to be up and floating in the air by 2 a.m.
What did they just sew it back where it got burnt?
No, I don't think
or-
it got burnt that bad.
Oh, okay.
It was. I think it was
a little
just like the
crispy.
edge. Yeah, just a little toast. The balloon rose 2,000 meters in 9 minutes and drifted towards West Germany at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour, which is 19 miles per hour.
And that's almost 2 miles high.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'd be throwing up all the way there.
Oh, me too. And 8 people, like they were probably packed. probably throwing up on each other.
I have no idea how they didn't get spotted. I know it's in the middle of the night, early morning, but for it to be all different colors, have throw up, I'm assuming, coming over the edge.
Yeah, it's a miracle. So they flew for 28 minutes. It was 18 degrees outside, so fucking cold. And they only had the clothesline for railing.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine?
No. Could not be me.
No, ma'am. However, unfortunately, the stove had been misdesigned. They made the pipe too long, causing the flame to be too high. That meant it created too much hot air and too much pressure, causing the balloon to split. When the balloon split, cold air poured in through the hole and extinguished the flame.
No, please tell me they were already over West Germany.
Wetzel had to light and relight the flame several more times. So basically, it was like getting lit, the balloon would go up a little bit, it would get extinguished, start to go down, he'd have to light it. And they were just like frantically doing that over and over again, trying to keep this thing going. And lighting it so many times increased the height of the flame and increased how much fuel they're using. They only have so much fuel. So it's just really not a good scenario.
None of this is a good scenario.
No, that's true. And this also caused the balloon to go much higher than originally planned. And the Germans have radar for air traffic control to like detect planes. They got high enough that they were detected by West German air traffic control radars.
Oh, fuck.
And the balloon was also detected by East German night watchmen.
If you got into West Germany like you escaped East Germany, were the West Germans welcoming, or was it?
They wanted you to escape.
Okay.
They didn't fuck with East Germany. They're not going to send you back.
They weren't deporting them.
No, thank God. So this was it was detected but not identified. It was classified as an unidentified flying object and was reported to border guards, who then activated searchlights. So now there's searchlights happening. The people in the balloon can see this going on. They must have been fucking terrified.
Yeah, I'd be getting off that balloon like with literal shit in my pants.
You'd just be jumping off of it when it's done.
No, once we finally got down, yeah, I'd be a mess. It'd be throw up. I definitely would have pissed my pants at some
100%.
point.
I pissed my pants just getting in the car to go to the balloon.
They'd be like, why are you naked? I'm like, I don't want to soil my clothes. So
yeah, you're like, you told me just to bring my identification papers.
I just have a Ziploc that I keep my clothes in to change into once we get there. Like, all right, huddle together. Actually, it's fine. The shit keeps you warmer.
Oh, God. Yeah, they have. Never mind. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, this got real disgusting, and I'm sorry.
So the lights are going on, but luckily the balloon was high enough to stay out of the range of the lights. The tear in the balloon, though, meant that they couldn't travel the original 50 kilometers they had planned because they're burning up so much fuel. And eventually the propane tank did run out and the balloon descended. When they landed, they were not certain whether or not they had crossed the border. Like, they had no way of knowing. They saw the lights, so they knew they were close to the border, but they weren't sure what side they were on. So the two men went and they're like, stay here. We're going to go look around and make sure we're in the West. When they looked around, they saw yellow and red lights, and neither of these are common in Eastern Germany. They also saw small farms, which was another sign they were in the West, because the Soviets just had these large state-run farms. They didn't have small family farms. And the farming equipment looked new. And in the East, everything was like old and outdated.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
So they're like, things are looking pretty good, but like, we still can't be certain. Soon, though, two police officers arrived on the scene, and Wetzel and Strelzyk cautiously approached them and asked if they were in the West.
They just go up and do like thumbs up or thumbs
down.
down.
You tell me. So that's when they saw that the police officer's car was an Audi. And they're like, okay, you don't even have to answer. Thank God. They had made it. They called out to their families. They're like, we're here. and they were in the West. They were saved.
What a roller coaster
I
of
know.
emotion.
Can you imagine? So in the aftermath of the successful escape, East Germany increased their border security and closed all small airports at the border. Propane tanks now had to be registered, and buying fabric in bulk became prohibited.
Oh, they fucked it up for everyone
I
else.
know, it sucks.
Man.
And what sucks even more is Stretzyk's brother Eric and his sister Maria and her husband were then swiftly arrested and charged with aiding and abetting escape, even though they had nothing to do with it. But it was standard procedure for the Soviets to arrest close family members after an escape.
Yep. Soviets gonna Soviet.
Indeed, they do. These people were sentenced to 2.5 years, I believe, either in prison or a work camp. But luckily, they were eventually released with the help of Amnesty International. The balloon had landed in Bavaria in the town of Nelia, 10 kilometers from the border. So they just barely made it over. The two families initially settled down in that town. Wetzel worked as a mechanic, and Strelzyk opened a TV repair shop.
Good. They deserved a win.
They do, but unfortunately, the Strelzyk family was being harassed by Stasi's spies, so they had to flee to Switzerland in 1985.
Oh my God.
I know, they can't catch a fucking break.
Were they fine once they got to Switzerland?
Yeah, they were fine in Switzerland, and then Germany reunified, and they were able to move back to their original hometown in Pusnik in 1990. And the Wetzels stayed in Bavaria, where they had originally settled.
I would imagine it would be hard to go back to your original town after all that shit went down and seeing it.
Yeah, it might be, but they had a house there, and I believe they were decently happy there. I don't think there are too many traumatic memories, at least none that were published.
That's a good point.
So I think honestly it was probably a relief to go reclaim their home that they were forced to abandon. And their story has been featured in 2 films, Night Crossing and Balloon. Night Crossing is also called With the Wind to the West, and it was produced by Disney. Both families were reportedly dissatisfied with the Disney portrayal.
Oh, was it completely sugar-coated and
sure
inaccurate?
It was. I'm sure it was whitewashed to hell and really dumb. And that was my lesson on the East Germany balloon escape.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I just watched a movie, actually.
I'm sure the movies are great.
Emotions were up and down and up and down. That was stressful, but so well told. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, well done, Kat.
Thank you. And of course, I want to thank my sponsors, or not sponsors, my sources, which are How Two Families Fled Communist Depression in East Germany in a Homemade Hot Air Balloon by Shara Tibkin on cnet.com, East German Balloon Escape Wikipedia page, and How Two Families Escaped East Germany in a Hot Air Balloon by Madeline Hiltz on warhistoryonline.com.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Alec, did you want to say anything?
Oh, yeah. Just the reason I chose that one was because I feel like Kat does a lot of big picture things that are either a subject or someone's full life.
Yeah.
And I wanted something that was just a story event of kind of that had all the emotions of suspense and things, because she's a good storyteller, but often she does just kind of big picture stuff. So, and you do a lot of kind of escape type things. So I was trying to give people give you guys
you people
Uno reverse. Yeah. Give you people
a challenge.
Yes.
Put you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. But I had a lot of fun researching it. It is an awesome story. So thank you, Alec, for the suggestion.
I'm glad it wasn't a total bust.
No, it was great. I hope I told it the way you envisioned.
I think you nailed it.
Thank you. And let's hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help, or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop feeling ashamed of your normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It is fully online to get you scheduled for an appointment. You don't have to talk to anyone on the phone. It's the best and breaks down those barriers of traditional therapy. It is also much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And special offer to Night Classy listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/classy. That is betterhelp.com/classy. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Thank you for listening to the ad, because remember, supporting our sponsors supports us. So thank you, and remember to use that code CLASSY.
Welcome back.
Hi.
It's my turn for the producer's pick. All right. In 1975, there was a big thunderstorm passing overhead. Not sure which town it's in, but I'm guessing southern based on the accents.
Okay.
And Daniel Brinkley was calling his best friend Tommy on their landline. He goes upstairs, and while he's looking out the window, a bolt of lightning strikes him through the window, and it launches him across the room.
I'm waiting for that to happen to us any second as the storm outside rages on.
Hopefully not. That would be terrifying. I will never forget when I was probably in 5th grade or so, lightning struck our house right as my dad was getting into the shower.
Oh, no.
And thankfully he hadn't gotten in yet, but we were all like,
that is really
dad
scary.
Dead? Yeah.
Is dad dead?
There was a mark on the side of our house.
Jeez.
It was like a black mark. Yeah, it was intense. Who knows why he decided to shower during a thunderstorm?
I mean, I've done it. I feel like you never expect it to hit your house.
He wanted out.
Yeah, he's looking for a way.
Yeah, thankfully my dad was fine. Dannon was not. This bolt of lightning was so strong, his shoes were welded to the floor. Like his shoes.
What?
Yes. His shoes stayed in place while he's launched across the room. So Dannon's wife, Sandy, she runs up the stairs after hearing this loud noise, this boom. And Tommy starts rushing over to the house after hearing the entire thing over the phone. I have no idea how the phone didn't get busted during this whole thing.
Yeah, he probably just heard like a boom, right?
Yeah, it was a huge boom, and then that was it. So Dannon's body laid lifeless on the bed after he was catapulted onto it, and Sandy started doing chest compressions, mouth to mouth. When Tommy got there, he did the same thing, but nothing was working. So they rushed Dannon to the hospital, where staff worked on him for another 25 minutes before they officially pronounced him dead. So they notified Sandy and Tommy and kind of let them be and deal with that news. They were outside in the hallway, and Tommy was just really struggling. Like, that was his best friend who had just died in this freak accident. And he wanted to see him one last time before they took him down to the morgue. And as he entered the room where Dannon's body was, he's, on the bed, but they had covered him with a sheet. He notices the slightest movement underneath the sheet, and Tommy pulls the sheet back and starts listening closely to Dannon's face, and he was breathing. He was alive 28 minutes after he had been officially pronounced dead. So Tommy starts screaming. He's like, he's alive, he's breathing. The nurses...
How embarrassing would it be if it was just wishful thinking and he was not alive?
That would be awful. I'd be so pissed if I was Sandy.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually was, though.
Okay,
thankfully. The nurses rush in after Tommy started screaming. And what's more shocking is not only that this happened, but what Dannon was experiencing himself while he was dead. When he was struck by lightning, he said that he felt fire all over his body. It was a strong burning sensation.
Bad boy, he went to hell.
Yes, that's what I was immediately like, okay, we know where you're going.
Better shape up.
It was not the lightning. And then after that burning sensation, he felt nothing. Dannon watched his wife perform CPR in an out-of-body experience, and he said he even thought to himself, I thought I was more handsome than that.
It's hard when
It
you
is hard.
see yourself realistically.
Oh my God. Yeah. The angle matters too. And,
Yep, and
having
light.
just gotten struck by lightning, you're definitely not looking your best.
No.
So he was pretty appalled. And then while he was dead, Dannon also got over 100, I like to call them sneak peeks at the future, like events to come. For example, the fall of the Soviet Union, Chernobyl, Ronald Reagan being elected.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then before he knew it, when he was feeling nothing and feeling pretty blissful, he was on fire again.
Oh, no.
And when he woke up, he was partially paralyzed. It took him 2 years to teach himself how to walk and how to feed himself again. And he told all of his friends about these like strange experiences, but none of them really thought anything of those events that he saw that he said were the future until they started coming true. And not only was he subjected to this like future telling during his near-death experience, but also when he returned to Earthside, he came back with psychic abilities.
This is my dream.
That would be the absolute best party story.
Yeah.
Like you could he needs to write a book, which I think he actually did.
Yeah.
And this is the best of luck. I have to say, he really turned it around. And Dannon reflected on his life before this event, and he did realize, he was like, "Yeah, I had been a bully. I definitely
What
could
did
have
he
been
do?
nicer." I think he was just a bully in school. Because he
Oh.
saw some of the people that he had bullied and was like, yeah, I didn't do right by them. And as a psychic, Dannon can see future events and even experience things or see people who are like on the other side trying to communicate with their loved ones who are still living. So now he just spends a lot of time in nursing homes and hangs out with like older people
Okay.
and comforts them. But most of all, Dannon's near-death experience changed his life. And I would say for most people who have near-death experiences, their lives are also forever changed as well. And that's what we're talking about today's near-death experiences.
Fun.
Although modern medicine makes resuscitation much more common than it ever has been, people have been coming back from the dead since people have been peopling.
Right.
It's not a new phenomenon. According to Plato's Socrates, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Socrates.
Socrates.
I almost said Socrates.
Socrates.
You're Socrates.
Query.
Oh. He had a near-death experience, and Pliny the Elder also recorded another one of his in the 1st century. There are plenty that go way back, plenty from the Middle Ages. I have 3 more near-death experiences that I can tell you about. It's kind of like a choose-your-own adventure. Do you want some now? Do you want me to sprinkle it in throughout, like take breaks from the main lesson? What are
I want
feeling?
you to read it how you wrote it. Just minimize the amount of jumping around. Make it
Perfect.
easy.
So I'm going to tell you 3 more near-death
Okay.
experiences, and then we'll go into some research about it.
Okay.
So the first one we have here is from Thomas Benson. He admittedly was overindulging in cocaine, and that was a regular habit for him in his 20s. He said most of it was a blur, and after he'd been partying really hard one night, he woke up and stretched, like he stretched his arms up to get all the tired off of him, and he stretched in a weird way that caused his heart rate to go way up, and he felt like his heart was like beating out of his chest.
Oh my God.
And then he went into a coma-like state. Yeah, he just basically passed out in his apartment and he saw bright lights. One was red, one was just bright, he said. I'm assuming like a whitish, yellowish. He just said it was a bright light. And then he felt like he was drifting, but also he was like, please don't let me die. Please don't let me die. And he started hearing voices as well. And they told him, you can either die or you get another chance to do life better. And Thomas promised God that he would live for God, turn his life around if he got one more chance to live right. And he's here today to tell the story.
Okay.
That one's pretty plain and simple. Next up, we have Lynn Reitzlin. So she was driving through an intersection and the light was about to turn red and she was slowing down to stop at the red light when for some reason she made the decision to just gun it. She took her foot off of the brake, pressed down on the gas, and tried to blow through the light.
I do hate that awkward like moment where you're like, would it be worse to slam on my brakes or like slam on the gas?
Absolutely.
Like this is a fear of mine, is that I make the wrong choice and I either get rear-ended or T-boned.
From how she described it, that's not what this was. She was already slowing down and then she was like, I think I can make it.
I mean, fair. We've all been there.
Well, I would say it was a mistake, but who knows? You know, we get placed in these situations for reasons. But the next thing she knew, she was, quote, and this is all, I just like transcribed her interview. She was, quote, in another place. It was kind of like sheer material all around me. It was a light and it was like a golden color and it was kind of like being in a cocoon. It was really warm and I could see someone just on the other side of the material that I knew was my dad. After it seemed I had been there for quite a while, I remember looking to my left and pretty far down, I could see my family. They each had their own combination of colors that were swirling around their bodies and yet coming out in rays. And that was when I knew it was time to go back. And the next thing I knew, I was waking up and the nurses were telling me I had been in a wreck.
I mean, that's a fun one.
It is a fun one. I like that she could like see our auras.
Yeah, that's really fun. I feel like these are dreams. Like we hear about the ones where they like go to heaven or hell, but then like a lot of people just like probably have random dreams, you know, and like don't even think to like really tell anyone because like you know.
You mean like when people like die?
Yeah, when they die.
Yeah. About 20% of people who are resuscitated tell or at least remember their near-death experience, like that kind of in-between state. And the distinction that they draw is that unlike a dream, it feels real. It feels like you are in this other conscious being, like that is your new reality.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's the distinction at least that I saw a lot in the research.
And your brain is dead, so there's no brain activity.
No, that's not true.
My bad.
We'll get to brain death because there's a difference between clinical death and brain death. Because once your brain is done, you're done. But we'll get to that. Okay, this next one was anonymous. Like it was a set of interviews about people's near-death experiences, and it showed her face, but not her name. Like they showed everyone else's name, but not her name.
Why? Why allow your face to be shown, but not your name?
I have no idea.
Maybe she just has a really stupid name.
I'm almost thinking that maybe they just forgot to edit in like the text of her name. I don't know. But she said that she was at Brookside Estates. So we're going to call her Brooke.
Okay.
Brooke was at a friend's house and there were 3 of them. They were young girls, about 10 years old. They decided to take a dip in the hot tub. Well, her hair got sucked in to the water pump.
No, worst nightmare.
Absolutely. And that's something you don't even think about. Like when I think about dangers in hot tubs, I think like accidentally breaking a glass in the hot tub or drowning, but not getting my hair sucked in and drowning.
Is there a reason all of these things are like freak accidents? Like, do you think that like your like spirit guides or your guardian angels like create these like random scenarios to kill you, like, and then like teach you like a lesson and then bring you back, you know, like.
Yeah, that. Or I was also thinking, like, with these freak accidents, maybe you catch your guardian angels off guard.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, it's this weird in between where they're like fumbling.
Everything's on fire.
Yeah. So her hair, she gets dragged under. Her hair is stuck to this pump. And at first, her friends thought that she was trying to fool them and is just joking around.
Oh, no.
Also, worst case scenario.
Should you like keep a pair of scissors next to your hot tub in case this happens?
You have to now, right?
I mean, I would.
Or if you're 10 years old, don't go in the fucking hot tub alone.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure hot tubs now, this can't happen, right?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it must have been like the 80s or 90s based off of how she looked.
Because I don't think there's anything wrong with letting your like 10-year-old and her friends be in the hot tub by themselves.
I fully disagree. I think if you're home, it's fine.
If you're home. I'm sure the parent was home somewhere, right?
No, they were home alone.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fine if you can be kind of around, but no, it just, you know, drowning can happen so fast. Even dry drowning.
Yeah, that's true.
It's too scary for me. But yeah, that's a good tip. Keep your scissors near when you go in the hot tub.
Just an emergency scissors. They're like behind a pane of glass. You have to break it.
Okay, and then also worst case scenario, once they realized that this situation was very real, one ran to get the scissors and then the other one tries calling 911. They keep getting the busy tone.
On 911?
On 911.
This feels like a dream. We were just talking about this the other day, how when you're in dreams and you need to get help, you can't.
Yeah. Anyone, yeah. She's like moving in slow motion to get the scissors.
She can't like... She loses her voice. That happens to me in dreams. So I'm trying to yell and no sound comes out.
Oh my God, it's the worst. I'm getting anxiety from it right now. So while Brooke is underwater, she's like holding on for about a minute or so. But, you know, she can only hold her breath for so long. She wasn't expecting to be dragged underwater. So she estimates that about after a minute or so, she decides to just let go and let the water in. And she blacks out. But then she remembers being in an ambulance. The EMTs are asking her name and the date. And then it flashes forward and she's in the hospital. And she remembers the doctor saying, quote, she's about to go into shock. She's going to go into a coma. It'll probably last months if she ever even wakes up from it at all.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And that's the last thing she remembered. But on the 5th day of her coma, it was just Brooke and her mom in the hospital room. And according to her mom, out loud, Brooke starts screaming, "Get that man out of my room. Get that man out of my room."
Ugh.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, Brooke, I'm going to head out.
Yeah. Did you just call me a man?
Yeah, I am your mother. Brooke looked up from the bed and there was a very tall man with long hair and a long beard wearing a trench coat. He had red eyes.
Ew.
And he was standing towards the end of her bed holding a knife.
What the fuck?
Yeah, super scary. Behind him, there was a very bright light. And the light got stronger as he like slowly got closer to her. And then to her left, Brooke saw an image of a girl about her age. The girl looked at Brooke and smiled, and Brooke smiled back to her. And then the little girl walked to the end of the bed, grabbed the man by the wrist, and the knife dropped to the floor, and his eyes turned blue. He turned around and walked out of the room, and the light followed him. And then Brooke woke up from her coma.
Ew, I feel like that's like a demon trying to possess her when she's in a vulnerable state.
Yeah, that was not a good near-death experience.
No, that's fucked up.
The little angel girl was like, this is mine to decide when she's gonna head out, not yours. This soul is mine.
Ugh, the trench coat and the knife.
Super scary.
Yeah.
That reminded me of when my grandma had a stroke and she was in the hospital. And we were like probably on the 4th or 5th floor, and she had a window in her room. There was nothing, no balcony, nothing on the other side. It was just open air. And she like woke up from a nap and she starts pointing to the window, and we're like, what is it, Grandma? You know, what is it? She wasn't talking very well at that time, but she was kind of starting to get her senses back and everything. And she's like, who's that man? Who's that man? And we're like, who's there? She says, he has like on this lawn, like he's in all black and I can't see his face. And he's just outside the window.
Scary.
Super scary. And we're like, Grandma, if it's your time, go on. Girl.
Go with the man.
Go with the man. If you feel good about it, if you like it, I love it. Like, we got many more years with her, thankfully, but that was one of my only experiences with
that's
anything
creepy as
like
hell.
that. Yeah. Near-death experiences are a coined phrase by psychiatrist Dr. Raymond Moody. He coined it in his 1975 best-selling book, Life After Life. And many people's near-death experiences have a lot in common. You have the bright light, the tunnels, the feelings of comfort. It's typical that you don't feel pain when you're in these near-death experiences. You have an overwhelming sense of love, joy, and a lot of people also experience life reviews. You know, when people say your life flashes before your eyes.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that these experiences not only span across time, but religion and culture. These are experienced all around the world, no matter what religion you practice, if you practice religion at all. And it's thought that near-death experiences are a fundamental, or at least could be a fundamental part of death, and obviously transcend beyond cultural and religious expectations and traditions. I have a quick quote here from Getting Comfortable with Death and Near-Death Experiences by Dr. Raymond Moody. Quote, however articulate they may be, they say that this experience is ineffable and indescribable. Words are simply inadequate. They say that in the bright light, they feel comfort, joy, peace, and love so intense as to be almost palpable. They say they perceive the spirits of deceased loved ones, departed relatives, and friends who seem to be there to welcome them. These patients also say that they re-experience in vivid details the events of their lives in a sort of holographic, full-color panorama. Although it takes only an instant, they report reviewing the actions of their lives emphatically and from the consciousness of others with whom they had interacted rather than from their original perspective. And all of that happens, I guess, from what feels like a blink. It doesn't feel like you relive your entire life, at least the time it takes, but you get all of it back in a way.
Yeah.
Which
I'm cringing thinking about watching my life back through someone else's eyes.
I'm like, let me just pick the moments that I do want to relive.
Yikes, that's tough to see.
Let me check like my greatest accomplishments.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's probably two, but
or we'll just like skip the middle school years.
Skip the middle school years. That's a good compromise.
Yeah, I can handle everything else. Leave that out.
Skip middle school, especially from others' point of view.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to see little 7th grade me trying to like wear exactly what everyone else wears just to fit in and being so awkward.
So
painfully awkward.
My mom just found my Team Edward t-shirt
Is she
from
sending it?
middle school. I have it in my possession right now. And on the back it says, what if I'm not the hero? What if I'm the bad guy?
And you wore that.
I wore it to school like every day, and I can't fit it onto my body anymore, but I need to do something
You
with
should
it.
make it into a pillow.
That's a good idea.
What's amazing, though, is that anyone who went to school with us, at least 50% of the grade was also obsessed with Twilight.
Yeah, it wasn't a weird thing. Although I did read Twilight like at the lunch table every day.
Same.
So that might be pushing it.
I remember being so embarrassed because I was crying reading New Moon.
Me too.
in school, and it was the worst.
I got like main character syndrome from like crying at New Moon during like silent reading time. I was like looking around, like wanting
so
people to
deep.
see me. Yeah.
No, I was embarrassed. I was like, and I think it was also because I'd never experienced emotion like that from a book before. So that was a new thing for me. Plus just the anxiety of being in 6th grade.
Oh, it's hard. It's a rough time.
Hard. Anywho, some researchers think that there is an explanation scientifically for all near-death experiences, and it is real to the people. It's a part of their reality, but it's just something that we can't understand if we haven't experienced it. Dr. Susan Blackmore believes that it can be explained away. She says that there's 2 main components that happen when our brains die or come close to dying. The first one is just being a lack of oxygen. She thinks that the tunnel that people see is a great example of this. And in a video, she explained that the visual cortex, for example, is laid out. So there's a lot of cells clustered at the middle of what you're seeing, and they start to fade out towards your peripheral. So you can see everything really well if you're facing at it, but not so much towards the sides. And when you're close to death, all of these cells start randomly firing and going off, and that would cause you to see what would look like a bright light in the middle as it gets darker towards the outside.
Okay.
The lack of oxygen can also produce visions, hallucinations that feel real, flashbacks, and feelings of floating or flying, and out-of-body experiences. You also have endorphins that are working to make you feel relaxed and pleasant. And honestly, at first when I heard this, I was like, oh, she's such a wet blanket.
Yeah.
Like, I want near-death experiences to be completely unexplainable. But then I thought about it more, and I'm like, I think both can be true. I think we can have functions of the body that work in tandem to help us make that journey to whatever's next.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
Dannon agrees that the explanation may happen to some people, but he also believes that there is a step past that, and that that's where he went. He was the guy from the first story, where he believes that powerful spiritual beings exist.
Okay.
So with this in-between space that Dannon references, there was some really neat research that I read about it. And this is where we get to the clinical death and the brain death and the difference between the two. A series of studies may offer hints at what the stage in between these two deaths feel like, which may tell us more about near-death experiences, because that seems to be where they're getting these. Clinical death is like the beginning of death. It's when your vital functions end and your heart is no longer pumping, but your brain is still going. There's still some oxygen in there, and you're officially considered dead once there's brain death. But the thing is, the beginning of death, clinical death, and brain death can be 4 to 6 minutes apart. So that gives you a lot of time to just hang in limbo and try and get
in the party.
resuscitated. Yeah. And for most, death doesn't happen in an instant. And with near-death experiences, we get a chance to sample death, if you will. We also get a chance to sample it by mimicking the chemicals that are released when you die. AKA, you can take DMT. In 2013, scientists at the University of Michigan gathered some lab rats, and they measured their activity in their brains while they died. I don't know how they died or
Bummer.
what they did to them. Yeah, not great. But they noticed that when the rats experienced cardiac arrest with no heartbeat or breath, their brains showed a huge surge of a global activity of low gamma waves. And they were more synchronized across the brain than in the rat's normal waking states. And what that means, and using previous studies, is that this type of brain activity has been linked to people's conscious perception in previous states. So it was almost as if they were experiencing life, but their hearts had already stopped. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One may look at someone, for example, in like their final stage of death, and as completely as passive and unconscious as someone may seem, research may tell us another story. It's possible that these rats were experiencing something between that clinical death and the brain death, and we're not really sure what it is, but we know there has to be something there. So this study raised more questions for scientists, such as like, what the fuck is happening? And could the same thing happen in humans? Because obviously human brains and rat brains are different. And an experiment conducted at Imperial College London in 2018 did shed some more light on what it might feel like for humans to die. And the scientists, what they wanted to do with this specific study was explore any similarities between two very different phenomena. First of all, near-death experiences and DMT trips, because the test subjects, they're given a high dose of DMT legally and they start, tripping their faces off. This mimics the rush of chemicals that humans get when they die.
Okay.
So they tripped their balls off, and then once the high wore off, the scientists asked the participants to come back and describe their experiences. They didn't have them just write random things down. The subjects used a checklist that is usually used to evaluate near-death experiences. And you may have seen this coming, but there was an incredible amount of similarities between near-death experiences and DMT trips.
Okay.
Both included sensations like transcendence of time and space and oneness with nearby objects and people.
Yeah. Nearby objects. They're just like looking at a hairbrush.
Yeah, I get that out of body experience type feel, I guess. It seems very intense to me. So now scientists, at least some, are thinking, well, what if death is just psychedelic? Like, what if we get this huge burst of chemicals and it's just a big trip?
Yeah.
Dr. Chris Timmerman led that research, and when asked what this research can tell us about death, he said, quote, "I think the main sort of lesson of the research is we can find death actually in life experiences." And he continued on, "What we know now is that there seems to be a surge of electrical activity. The gamma rays that they saw are strong, and they think that those may be responsible for near-death experiences. Specific regions in the brain, such as the medial temporal lobes, which are responsible for memory, dreaming, and even learning, may also be related to near-death experiences, as our brains are stimulating a form of reality. And that's where they draw that distinction between dreaming and these like actual hallucinations that feel like something so much grander and like spiritual. People's lives come out changed after experiencing it."
Do you know, can regular dreams like cross over into like that other territory? Like, can you get the same stimulation while you're dreaming?
I don't think so. Not just from REM sleep, especially because it's like, it seems like they've only been able to mimic it if you're either taking DMT or you're clinically dead.
Okay. Got it.
So I'm hoping not. If you want to experience that, I guess find a DMT person. Safely. Legally. I don't know where it's legal, if it is legal anywhere.
I'm sure there's somewhere.
I stated this before, but I have more to talk about it here. About 20% of people who do experience near-death hallucinations after being resuscitated from clinical death or people who are resuscitated, about 20% of them experience those hallucinations. So it is possible, they think, that everyone who almost dies does have a near-death experience, but they just don't remember it.
Okay.
Dr. Timmerman also witnessed in these DMT trips that they didn't remember some of those parts of the experience. He thinks it could be because the experience was so novel and so just difficult to describe, to put into words, that it's almost elusive to your brain.
Also, you're dead. So
Also, you're
maybe
dead.
you just don't remember.
Also, you're tripping your balls off if you're part of the DMT experiment.
I would feel so robbed if I woke up from being dead and I didn't have an experience to tell everyone.
Weirdest dream.
Yeah, I'd probably make something up, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
If they're like, you were in a coma for 5 days. I'm like, you would not believe what I've seen.
Get me a publishing company in here right now.
Yes, that would be the perfect opportunity, because what are they going to do?
Yeah, who's going to refute you?
No
They
one.
can't.
They can't. That's a great idea. Psychiatrist Bruce Grayson has been fascinated by near-death experiences and gathered tons of stories. He published this book called After, and his patients all tell him just about the same thing, with one stating, I really like the way this one patient put this. He recalled his near-death experience, and he said it was like trying to draw an odor with crayons.
Okay.
So it's like your senses are there and you can experience it, but to be able to use language to put it out there.
Yeah, it's something that doesn't exist here on Earth, so you can't describe it with words that we have on Earth.
Yep, exactly. And that's what makes me feel that, yeah, I love that we do have this scientific explanation for it, but I also think it is just something so much bigger and grander that... yeah, we can look at our brains and say, oh, we have these rays or these chemicals produce this experience. But I think it's a small gear in this huge, complex thing.
Yeah, I feel like the chemicals could put you into a state of mind that facilitates spiritual intervention.
Totally. And for a long time, they wanted to have more information on the brain activity of someone when they die, so they could see what was firing off, especially for when they die or almost die. But you don't know when near-death experiences are going to happen, so it made it really hard to pin down. But a recent brain scan of an epileptic patient accidentally showed us brain activity when someone dies. So what happened was researchers at the University of Tartu, Estonia, were trying to find ways to detect seizures before they happen. So they have this guy plugged up to an EEG. Unfortunately, he just happened to have a heart attack and died while they were recording it.
Oh my God.
So they got a ton of footage. They got a ton of data. And when this happened, they saw brain activity that is related to recall, dreaming, and that higher transcendence of meditation, which makes researchers think that there might be some truth to your flashing before your eyes experience, whether it's just recall or who knows what causes it. But that was just one study, and this patient is considered already an outlier as someone who suffered from epilepsy. But it was the first time that scientists were able to capture brain activity during death.
Wow. And they didn't come back, right?
No,
Okay.
they didn't come back. Yeah, so we still don't have, I think, that brain activity from actual near-death experience.
It'll be great when science makes it so that we can always revive someone who's freshly dead. And
Ooh,
then
yeah,
we
just
can
zap
just
'em.
purposely zap, kill people, look at their brain, and then bring them right back.
Would you do it? Would you?
I think so. If you could guarantee that you'll bring me back, sure.
Yeah, I'm going to have to see a lot of other people
Yeah.
do it first.
You have to promise me it won't hurt and I will come back.
I'm sure it'll probably be one of the most pleasurable things to ever happen to you with
Unless
the
you
amount
see hell.
of chemicals.
How many people see hell?
Start burning like Danyan. The only person was Danyan, who was like burning.
And that could have just been from the lightning.
Yeah, it could have been. He was obviously sent back. I'm sure he's going to heaven now after talking to all these people and using his newfound psychic abilities. But a common trend that I saw in this research is that a lot of these patients come away from these near-death experiences feeling like their lives have changed, that they're on this earth for a reason. They may not know what it is, but it seems to be an overall positive experience.
Good.
And that is my lesson on near-death experiences.
Wow, thank you. That was so interesting.
You're welcome. My sources are Unsolved Mysteries, Season 7, Episode 4, Near-Death Experiences by the Columbus Dispatch, What Does Dying Really Feel Like by BBC Real, Activity of Dying Brain Shines Light on Near-Death Experiences by Kristen Hauser on Big Think, What Do Near-Death Experiences Mean and Why Do They Fascinate Us by Alex Moshakis? I don't know. New Clues Found in Understanding Near-Death Experiences by Robert Martone in Scientific American, and Getting Comfortable with Death and Near-Death Experiences, an essay in medicine and philosophy by Dr. Raymond A. Moody.
Wow. Thank you. And thank you, Alec.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Kat this morning was like looking at YouTube and was like, why are you searching about near-death experiences?
I thought there was something wrong. I thought,
what are you not telling me?
Yeah. But what made me think to do it was there's a scene in a Sopranos episode where someone has a near-death experience, and it got me interested in, like, why did they include that? It seems like too supernatural. And as I read more and more accounts, I was like, this is actually really interesting.
Yeah, I was not expecting there to be so much research behind it. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to end up just reading a bunch of near-death experience stories and that'll be cool. But no, there's a lot more, and I'm positive I've left out so much research that may say other things or even contradict what I said in my lesson. So if it interests you, go do your own research.
Yeah, I'm sure there's infinite books about this subject.
Definitely. But all of the stories, it was so hard to pick from all of them. Alex sent me probably like 10 videos.
Yeah, and after reading a bunch, because there's some guy who compiles like all of them.
There's a whole website.
And there was one like from the 1800s where a grandma like was telling her family what they were doing in this house when she died. And it was weird because I went from like not believing there's an afterlife to reading all of those and be like, I think there's an afterlife.
Yeah, it's like you can explain the brain activity and the chemicals, but you can't explain that guy knowing the future, and you can't explain people who can see like what's happening around them when their eyes are closed and they're gone.
And the guy from the University of Virginia, the psychologist, said like he knows that in science like you can't prove this stuff, but he's like, after interviewing thousands of these people, he's like, it seems as if there's something about your identity that can come and go without your brain.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know that sounds insane, but he's like, I've seen so many people change occupation when they get back, like cops no longer being cops because they're like, I can't even think about killing somebody.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if people who do DMT have that type of like your personality is totally different.
I think some people do.
Yeah. Have you seen that? I think it's on Netflix, the documentary about DMT and how it works in the brain, and a bunch of people recounting their experiences.
I've seen one about ayahuasca. I don't think I've seen the DMT
similar.
one. Okay.
But yeah, it's a very spiritual experience.
Yeah. And I mean, even psilocybin can make people change their occupations, I think. But
yeah,
I don't know. It was fascinating. And thank you for teaching it because I learned a lot.
Me too. Thanks for picking it out. Kat and I were like, we got to have this like once a month. Have Alec just get topics for us, because
if you want to, Alec, you're welcome to. It was really nice to have my topic picked out and squared away.
What spawned this to the listeners is that each week it sounded like they were really, really struggling to pick. And I was like, maybe just once a year I can be like, just do these.
Yes.
Or once a month,
Appreciate
once
it.
a week, whatever you feel like doing, it's up to you.
And if you want to pick, that is an option, listeners. We have a tier on Patreon where you not only get the postcard, you not only get the sticker, you not only get access to all of our backlog and all of our extra content like List Bitch, a whole new Night Classy show, and trivia, and live cocktail hours. But you also get to pick a lesson. So if there's something that you're like, why hasn't Night Classy covered this? Or I think Night Classy would love this. Then please send it our way. We love doing your lessons. And all you have to do is go to patreon.com/nightclassy.
Yeah.
The name of this podcast.
And a lot of people like suggest topics to us, and I love when you guys do that. But if you want to guarantee that we cover your topic, definitely go join Patreon.
We're legally binding.
Yes. It's a social contract. And anyway, we always appreciate you listening. Thank you so much for tuning it in and making it this far. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Tell your friends about this podcast. Follow us on social media. And like Hayley just said, check out Patreon. We'll see you there tomorrow for cocktail hour. Don't forget, 7 p.m. Central. The Zoom link is on Patreon already. And we will see you there. We love you. Thank you. And 3, 2, 1. Class dismissed.